And then this is an effort of the teaching and learning team just putting this together. And so I just want to give a shout out to all of their hard work. We know that January through March season is a very high impact time for growth and working towards that achievement that we want to see at the end of the year. And our MAP data is one of our really key pieces to inform instruction and make sure that we are recognizing where our students are and how we can maximize the learning, especially in this stretch of the year as we head into end of year assessments. So just a little bit about our MAP data. If you'll advance those slides to the one more. So with MAP, we look at both growth and achievement. And the nice thing about MAP is it has national norms, which allow us to compare our students to like peers across the nation. So it really helps us to set a target. It helps us with student goal setting and getting students to really know what they're working towards. And it also helps us to look at both growth and achievement for our students. So you have that information just to help you understand some of the pieces that we talk about. And with MAP, we talk about a RIT score. So looking at the next slide, a RIT score is a stable scale with intervals. It's kind of like inches on a ruler, or like when you put your kid up against the back of the door and mark with a pencil how they're growing. And so it's very helpful to parents and students and teachers, because regardless of a student's age or what grade they're in, or whether they're below grade level, on grade level, or above, we have that stable scale that we can continue to monitor their growth and achievement. So it makes it a very useful tool for everybody to have that stable scale. And as we're into it a good ways now, our teachers are very skilled at taking that data and using that learning continuum data and seeing where our kids are. And as we go over this, you'll notice that we have some areas of strength that we are celebrating, and then you also have some areas where we're like, okay, we need to dig in a little bit more with that group. So we're going to start off here looking at our MAP district growth. And this is what we refer to as our stars and bars charts. Our admin are very familiar with this. And what we want to see is the bar represents our district growth for each of those grade levels. We like to be well through that diamond. The diamond represents the national norm growth target. So that's kind of our target there. We want to be well through that. So you can see that strong growth in kindergarten on up through third grade. We have a little dip in fourth grade. Shows us that we need to continue to really work for that growth with our fourth graders. Kind of continues on there through sixth grade, and then we see our bar strongly through the diamond in seventh and eighth. So the good news is we are at or approaching or through that target in each of those grade levels, but a couple of those where we know that we have a little work to do in digging into that growth. And then the next slide represents our achievement. So this is referring to that normed average RIT. So looking at like peers across the nation, what is the norm average RIT for each of these? And you can see that in every grade level for math achievement, we are beyond the normed average. So that is what we like to see, is that we are surpassing that norm. So anywhere from 1 to 4 points, kindergarten being really strong there. Looking at the next slide with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, MAP achievement there. Again, we are at or beyond the norm average RIT in each of those grade levels, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Not quite as much margin, but surpassing that. And then looking at our reading growth on the next slide there. So looking again at want to see that bar well through the target, and see very strong growth in kindergarten, 2nd, 3rd, little dip in 4th, and then strong again there in 5th grade and beyond. So that's looking good as far as our reading growth. And then looking at achievement, again, you can see that we are surpassing in every area, in every grade level, the national normed RIT. In 6th, 7th, and 8th, we're also again at or surpassing that normed average RIT for looking at reading achievement. All right, moving on to special populations. So one of the things that's really helpful is to look not only at how the whole grade level is doing, but we always want to be filling those gaps with our special populations, our EL students, our SPED, our gifted, and making sure that we're hitting both growth and achievement. So on these, you'll see that they're paired together there. Looking at achievement first, we can see that we're approaching the norm in almost every area in EL and SPED. And we want to see that we would expect that our gifted students are well above that normed average written. So that's the norm average for all students, and we're looking at how our special populations compare there. Looking at growth on the other side, you can see that we have really strong growth in our EL population. In first grade, really strong growth in our EL population in kindergarten, and again, strong growth across those subgroups in second grade. So that's what we want to see, is that that's how we know we're filling in those gaps, is when we go beyond that normed, that target. Next slide shows us third, fourth, and fifth grade, again pairing achievement and growth side by side for math for our special populations. And again, that you'll see that we've got strong growth and achievement in our gifted learners and approaching that norm in most areas for our special populations. Just a couple of pieces to look at. If you look at third grade growth, we love to see when all three groups are well beyond that norm. So it's great to see when our EL and our SPED students are going beyond that target for the norm. We see that we have a little work to do with our gifted population in fourth grade, but then highlight that fifth grade special ed growth at the bottom there in math. So we see that strong growth going beyond that target. So you've got the numbers in there. I know it's a little small, hard to see on the screen, but you can kind of see where we fall in relation to that norm if you look into those bars. So looking at the next slide, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Again, we're seeing strong achievement and growth, especially if you look over at the right side with our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math. We're seeing very strong growth. In 7th grade, especially, we see our SPED population going well beyond, with 5 points growth, with the norm being 3.83. And also in 8th grade, very strong growth in all of our gifted learners there. So this information just really helps our teachers. We always want to make sure that our students are not only achieving, but their growth rate. And sometimes that's a little tougher with those gifted learners, to make sure that we're continually stretching them. So our teachers really use this data, and they dig into when they recognize, okay, we have a grade level that we may be achieving, but our growth is not where it needs to be. So this is very helpful information for them this time of year. All right, next up, looking at reading for our special populations in kindergarten through second grade. We see all of our groups are at or approaching those grade level norms, with a couple of highlights being, if we look over at growth in kindergarten and second grade, that correlates back to those bars where we were seeing really well through the target there, and we're just seeing that all of those populations are really growing at a high level, which is what we want to see. And then third through fifth, again, as we would expect, we're seeing strong achievement in our gifted population. We're seeing our EL and SPED approaching those targets and very close in some areas, and then seeing very strong growth over in third grade, all of those groups really surpassing or at. And then looking at fourth grade, we have strong growth in our EL population. Fifth grade, well surpassing the norm for growth in both our EL and our SPED population. So again, that's just where we really know that we're filling in those gaps when we see that we're going beyond. And finally, wrapping up with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade reading for our special populations. A couple of highlights there. If we look at our 6th grade growth, we see very strong growth for our EL and our SPED students. 7th grade, very strong growth for our SPED students. The norm is 2.89, and we are growing at an average of 5 points there, so that's excellent. And then looking at our 8th grade, again, strong growth for our EL and SPED. So those are just some highlights and ways that affirms the work that our teachers are doing, and also gives us a few areas where we know that we need to look at. So just a little more information from our teaching and learning team. We continue to really work on clarity in our instructional practices And as we head into February, we're focusing on quality assessments and building those formative practices, which is such a key piece. MAP is, again, we give it 3 times a year, so it gives us that information that we can use to inform instruction, but we're also really working on making sure that we're aligning all of our assessments to the intended level of rigor of the standard. So that's some work that we'll be doing on that February 21st day, is continuing to build capacity in our teachers to use those quick formative checks throughout their instruction to make sure that they know where students are in the learning. So any questions about the data or the other work of teaching and learning?
Well, I did just notice that it looked like 4th grade is where we have some struggles with both math and with reading and with gifted also.
Yep.
So I'm sure y'all are addressing those issues too.
And that is, yes. And so we have talked about this data with our leadership groups and our instructional coaches groups, and they are digging into that. And that's where it's important to know, where is that dip? How can we work with those teachers to really use those formative practices and making sure that we're addressing that in our interventions in our small groups, and also how we're extending and stretching the learning for students. So yes, that is something that we've definitely noticed and we're working on. Yes, absolutely.
Student health survey helped us at all with that level?
The student health survey is really different information from this. It definitely helps us know how students are feeling about school and a lot of those pieces, which all plays into how they're performing. So I think that's one of the pieces that we're recognizing, especially right now, as you know, we're kind of coming back to that full experience for students and recognizing that all of those factors play into how they're performing.
I agree. I do see that dip, but nationally I think we probably see the same thing. And the reason why I ask that is 4th, 5th grade is where your thoughts of maybe discontinuing school actually start. And it's critical sometimes, I think, nationwide, something with the curriculum is causing fits with some of the kids, and they get discouraged. And in my experience has been, that's where it all begins, right in there. So I just wondered what we're doing, and if there's something we need to do to help as a board support our teachers, because it's not just us.
It's a good reflective question, and I think for those, as we think about it, even from our own parenting journey or being a building level administrator, you recognize that sometimes those things push down a little bit, and 4th grade is where you start seeing some of those things that students are dealing with a little differently. So that is a good reflective question for us to think about, is what other factors may be at play there. So I appreciate that. That's something that we'll kind of dig into as we're in the process right now of getting that health survey done. So that's something that we can definitely look into.
I think Danny is going to get from Risa some printouts about the health survey, some graphs and things to help you with that. We had that today in Macon, so you should be getting that soon.
Very good. And next month we will bring to you the high school EOC data that we focused on K through 8 here. That data is still embargoed, so we'll bring that to you next month.
So first of all, we're glad to have you here.
Thank you
Dr.
so
Audrey.
much.
Very glad to have you. But also, and I heard you touch on it a little bit, so you can be specific with this information about per teacher, what teacher needs?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So every one of our teachers, they dig into their own student level data, so they can see every one of their students, what their growth is, what their achievement is, and then our administrators meet with our teachers typically in those mid-year conferences and really look at that data. That's something that's helpful on all the way around. We used to have that in milestones for that growth data as well. That has gone away currently, but will be coming back. But still continuing to have that strong MAP data is very helpful for really looking at growth. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hardigree. HR and Student Support Services. Ms. Todd, welcome.
Well, good evening. We have our updates from HR. The first thing you have is the enrollment report, and it continues to increase. So we are still looking at an enrollment that goes up every month, and Ms. Wilson told me just a few minutes ago that this data reflects an increase of 750 students since the end of last school year. So continued growth as we, and typically I think Miss Wilson said this is the time of year where we kind of see things slow down, but we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that happening right now. So, but that's okay. We're going to prepare for it and do our best to make sure we serve all of those students. And speaking of that, for our personnel update this evening, I'm excited to let you know that our process for central registration continues. I hope you saw when you came in the wonderful space that'll greet our families. And you'll see on the personnel report this month that we will be transitioning some staff here beginning March 6th to start with our registration processes here in the building. So we have some talented people in our district that have been wonderful and helpful in registering students in their schools, and are going to bring those talents here centrally, and will assist Martha and her team in getting that central registration up and running starting that first Monday in March. So we're super excited about that. We have wrapped up our personnel meetings with our principals. We held planning meetings with them through January, where we discussed the alignment of personnel with what we earn through FTE, and looked at class size and really focused on that projected growth. If we grew 750 students from last year to this year, are we projecting that for next year when we start talking about personnel? So lots of conversations around that with each of our schools, and principals are very busy right now recruiting, interviewing, starting that hiring process for those vacancies that we know of right now. So you will begin to see those 5- and 6-page personnel reports coming your way beginning this month. So Mr. Hooper and some principals and I have been on the recruiting circuit. We have visited 3 colleges, and we'll be hitting 2 more in the few months. And I will say, I have been extremely encouraged to see the amount of students that are coming to these job fairs, graduating with education degrees. I've been in HR for almost a decade now and was very disheartened at the number of students coming out of these programs. But the past few job fairs, we have met some quality candidates that were eager to get in classrooms, and I was excited to meet students that are graduating who are eager to be in middle school classrooms. So that is huge. And I was screenshotting their resumes and emailing them to our principals right there from the table, and they've already actually snagged a few of those. So we have had a great season on the job fair trail and have a few more to go. And we're very excited for the next slide. We're going to host our own career fair. And at this fair, we will be recruiting all positions, our custodians, our classified staff, transportation. We want everybody who wants to be a part of our school system to come out, and we'll have it here at Empower. Our principals will all have a table. Each department will have a table, and we would love your help at getting the word out. It's out there on social media, on the website, and we are pushing that to everyone that we can to let them know that we are hiring and would love for them to join our team. We'll work on that. We'll get that. We'll get a sponsor. Mr. Hooper, can you work on that for me? Free food? Got it. Okay. Free food. And then just the last update, I talked a lot about hiring, but I'm also very passionate about retaining and our teachers that are in the classrooms. I have made my rounds to do code of ethics training with a lot of our staff because I feel so important. I feel like that is so important that they have a deeper understanding. Just like the board has a code of ethics, educators have a code of ethics, and we do a great job in training them in so many things. I always give the example, they know exactly what to do when the fire alarm goes off because we train them and we practice. Unfortunately, now they know exactly what to do when we have to do an active shooter drill because we train them and we practice. We're keeping them safe that way, but I want to make sure we're keeping them safe by training and practicing, talking through some of these situations they're finding themselves in where it's possible that one of these ethic violations are going to have to be reported. And so I take that very, very seriously because I am an educator. I believe in public school. I believe in this profession, and I want it protected. I want it to be one of the esteemed professions. And so I am making sure that we go out and we talk through scenarios. We talk through what a teacher might face more than just instructing students. And so we go out and have all of those conversations. I think it's been well received. I know sometimes when I go out and share scenarios, people say I'm scaring them straight. That's not what I'm intending to do. I'm intending to protect them and make sure we're doing a good job at giving them the support and the skills they need so that they want to continue in this profession and they feel supported. And not only do they want to still teach, but they still want to teach here in Jackson County Schools. So just wanted to give you that update because we talk a lot about hiring, but we also want you to know the efforts that we're doing to retain and support our teachers. Any questions? All right. What kind of food do you want, Mr. Hollett? We'll work on it. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Waxter and Student Supports.
All righty. Good evening, board members. Dr. Brown. We're going to talk a little bit about Legacy Knoll. We're talking about all the growth. Let's talk about our new middle school coming up, right, and all the things that involves. So on our first slide here, I wanted to talk a little bit how we came to this point. Throughout last semester and really this past month, we've been meeting with the current West Jackson Middle School and Jackson County High School athletic directors to go over what to forecast for next year. We reviewed numbers for students who have been trying out in each sport and from previous school years to kind of see the trends of what sports might look like in the following year once we split those schools. So let me preface, we're forecasting, okay? So we're forecasting what we think it may look like for the sports for next year based on the current rosters that we have and on tryouts. We also had these discussions with our high school coaches and our middle school coaches within those sports. So if we go to the next slide, there were two decisions that were made. One was what teams would be combined, and the other one was what teams we can split. And once again, this is based on forecasting. Now, I will say this, as we go through each sport, we're here to do what's best for our students, okay? We want all sports to be available for our students at either school. So if it ends up where we have to combine, we combine. But if we have to split, we split, okay? So if we look through here, for our girls' sports, the teams that we're going to combine, first is the football, just based on history with some of the schools in their surrounding areas. They actually split at one point, and then they had to come back together because it didn't work out. Okay, so we're going to combine those teams for their first year, but the goal is to get them independent as soon as possible. Swimming and wrestling, those will be combined. We spoke to the coaches at the high school level, and they want to continue to build that program within Jackson County High School, so just for next year, they would like to keep those programs combined. And then with competition cheer and softball, that's really pending on tryouts, what it's going to look like when they come out, okay? So we don't have a clear-cut decision on those. But with the football, swimming, and cheer, and wrestling, those are. So the teams that would be independent are basketball for both boys and girls, competition cheer. I put that on there again, competition cheer and softball, just because that depends on tryouts. But volleyball and soccer, golf and cross country. I do want to mention with cross country as well as golf, both schools will be practicing together. Okay, so West Jackson Middle School and Legacy Knoll will both be practicing over at the high school, running that trail together. They will be practicing together so they can have that camaraderie, and if the numbers turn out right, we can split those teams at the meets, and if not, we just compete as one. But we want those kids to be together and to be able to practice together, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Yeah. If we go on to the next page, that's what the sports looks like, and then with fine arts, both are going to have band and chorus, of course, and then FFA. I know Mr. Hollett's happy about that, and then with the ag connection classes, we'll have those as well. So these are some of the clubs and activities that'll be there, but there will always be more, okay? So once the school starts, interests get piqued, and something will pique a kid's interest, say, hey, I want to start this club. So there will be additional clubs that will start once the schools get started. I remember when I was a teacher, there was no Spanish club. I was a Spanish teacher. I started a Spanish club after the school had started. So those kind of things happen. I just want you guys to be aware of that. One thing that I'm excited, though, is that both schools will have a robotics program. So we'll continue to build that robotics as it goes through Empower. Moving on. Well, before we go, any questions about Legacy Knoll? Okay. So go ahead. We're going to talk about the new sports. So I wanted to give you a little background how this worked out. So this past fall, we did a survey. Okay, we did a survey of all our students at both high schools, East Jackson and Jackson County, and we did it during the advisement time, and we wanted to know the interests of our students of what sports they would like to participate in, what we have and what we don't have, just to kind of see if we need to start growing some other programs. And as we did that, we went over the data with the high school athletic directors, and we talked about student voice. What do our students want, and where do they want to compete? And as we went through the data, the two sports that really came up, the one sport particularly at both high schools, believe it or not, was girls flag football. So we were going to begin girls flag football next year at both high schools. Athletic directors are actually, as they're interviewing and recruiting, they're seeing if we get some flag football experience with those guys. I think it's important too, as we have those flag football coaches, that they are someone who's charismatic and that the kids will just want to buy into the program to get things started. Okay. The other thing we're wanting to do with the new field at Legacy Knoll, we are going to start JV, just junior varsity lacrosse, okay, for boys and girls. That way we have two fields where we can actually practice on. In fact, we could even play on Legacy Knoll if it comes down to it, okay, with those games. If we can go to the next slide. For girls flag football, I'll just put this up here just so you guys are aware. You know, when I was in high school teacher, we called this powder puff, right? So now it's a GHSA sport. So I think that's really neat. It gives everyone an opportunity. I'll put the season up there just so you guys can see. It's relatively short. It's 2 months. And then the playoffs, and they're done right there in December. Okay? And at the next slide, junior varsity boys and girls lacrosse at Jackson County High School. It's January through April. And, of course, since it's JV, there's no state playoff participation sort of thing. Any questions on that? Once again, what I really appreciate about all this is about student voice. Okay, this is what our students want. And I think that's how we need to lead with that. Yeah, Mr. Sanders.
Funding for lacrosse. How are we handling that? Is that going to be players? Because lacrosse is not a cheap sport.
Correct. It's my understanding that the district will help with some of the equipment to get those teams started. And it's also my understanding we'll be having some temporary lines on the fields for that to play. Sir? We'll see, yeah.
I do have one question.
Yeah, Mr. Clack.
East Jackson High School has a dance team.
They do.
Jackson County,
I'm actually talking with Coach Hayes about that. They are wanting to move towards doing that. We just haven't had anything finalized on that for them to move forward. I do know the instructor over the dance program wants to have it. There's just I think there's some clarification we need to get for GHSA participation on that. But it is going in that direction, absolutely. Because I believe the program's really, really strong there.
East Jackson was fun to watch.
Oh, okay.
About girls play football, what other sports is that going to coincide with or potentially?
Let me get my slide. Can you go back to it so I can see the dates real quick? Thank you, sir. So, sports during that time, softball. It might touch a little bit of basketball. Is that what you're saying? Right. But I talked to Coach Hayes, and they're going to work it out where, you know, if it's possible that students can participate in both, so that there's not how do you say, like some take away from that sport. They want it to where they can participate in both. Doesn't hurt the other teams. Absolutely. Okay.
I'm excited about lacrosse.
Good.
It's a fun sport to watch. Playing, I don't know about. But
Well, I'm
watching is
excited.
fun.
You're excited because you can explain it to me because I don't know how to play it. Lots of running. Yes, sir. We're going to move now to our wraparound services. Mr. Johnson, please be nice to me as we go over these. We're going to start out, if I can get Rachel. Oh, there she is. She's a ninja. So I wanted to introduce our social workers, if you're not aware. We have 4 that help throughout the county. It's Miss Duke, Miss Silich, Miss Monroe, Miss McEnroe. Under there, you can see their specialties on what they focus on. As Miss Silich is our homeless liaison, foster care of Miss Monroe, and hospital homebound with Miss McEnroe. And the schools that they're over are on there too. They are great. When I'm having any issue or any questions, or there's a lot of times where I need to get an answer, I call my social worker and they give us answers. So we're great. We're very fortunate to have them with us. So what are wraparound services? Wraparound services provide this comprehensive, holistic, youth and family-driven way of responding when children or youth experience serious mental health or physical challenges, or behavioral challenges at that. Wraparound puts the child or youth and family at the center with the support from a team of professionals and natural supports. Now, the coordinator of these wraparounds are our social workers. So that's why I have Ms. Duke here with us tonight, in case you guys might have some questions here in a little bit, how it all works. But the person, the student, is in the middle, just like in this picture, and then we wrap around, so to speak, these services to help sustain them, to get them to be successful. The treatment goals of wraparound are centered on the child, but include the family and help to identify needs of the child at home, school, and in the community. It develops a program or plan that wraps around the child, providing assistance with emotional, mental, and behavioral challenges. These supports aim to keep children and their families together through individualized services to prevent residential facility or foster care placement. These services are here to lift the child up and to get through barriers, okay? There's a lot, and well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go through this. Let's go back to the 4 phases. Go ahead, thank you. There's 4 phases to it. First, we identify the coordinator, the social worker, finds out the needs of that child, what needs to be met. Then we coordinate and make that plan of the agencies and the partnerships that we use in our community to help support that child. We implement it, and then we just monitor it to see if things are working the way they need to. Am I right on that?
You are.
Okay, all right, good. So who are the ones that need wraparound service, or why do we do it? A lot of children who live in poverty start with disadvantages, okay? So it can be through health. It can also be through language, okay? It could also be through asthma. It can also be all these exposures to things that us, you know, folks, we don't have to worry about. So wraparound services are there to help make up that. So when do you need it? When do these children need it? When teachers or counselors start seeing some struggles in academics, especially attendance, behavior, or any home or community challenges, that's when the social worker steps in to see how we can get that plan going to help that child. So these are the organizations that we use. And on our next couple of slides, I'm just going to list some organizations that we use that are our wraparound services. But I would like to preface all this. If you, at some point when you go back to your constituents, if there are other organizations that would like to get involved with Jackson County Schools to help support our children, I think that would be a wonderful way to build a partnership with our community and with our schools. So as we go through these, if there's something that comes to your mind like, oh yeah, I know so-and-so that does that, please let us know, or let our social workers know so we can reach out to them, okay? So some of the things we use the food distribution organizations, clothing drives, Family Connection, which I'll talk about that in a minute, mental health organizations, medical care, DFACs, and of course homeless shelters in the area to help those who are homeless. So these are some of the organizations we use. I put their icon on here too. I know Maysville, a Hand Up Ministry, is very involved with our schools, so we appreciate the Maysville Baptist Church for helping us out. But there are local churches that help us, as well as these local ministries that help in just not in food, but you'll see in other things. For clothing donations, some of the ones that stand out, of course, are Fostering Hope and the Potter's House. I think we're all familiar with them that help us out too. Okay. Family Connection, are you guys aware of what Family Connection is? Some of you? Okay, so Family Connection, what it is, it's just an organization within Jackson County that links businesses, agencies, and citizens together to help others. They are an organization that sustains a lot of our wraparound services. Is that correct? So they are an organization who puts kids and families first, and we partner with them closely. They have events where they invite all communities in there to help support with health care, to do screenings and that sort of thing. And it's just a great organization that helps us out. We meet once a month with them to discuss what services they have that can help our community and our students. Okay. So mental health organizations, these are some of the ones we use. I do want y'all to know in the next 2 months we're going to have over 120 teachers and counselors and nurses, staff that are going to be participating in a mental health first aid training through Northeast Georgia RESA to help with our children and our students who are in crisis mode a lot of times. So they're there to help. They're going to get this training to kind of help in the process. So what we've done is had 2 sessions for the east side and 2 sessions for the west side. So we kept them together so there are going to be some collaborations because the families, right, will have kids throughout that, the school system. So I'm looking forward to that to see how that goes with our folks. Medical care agencies, these are just some more. One thing that I think is really neat, if you take a look at this, is the Athens Technical College Dental Hygiene Clinic. These are dental students, like dental hygiene students, hygienists, where they go and clean kids' teeth. I thought that's really neat. So these are some of the services we, of course, Lions Club. Just a short story, if I may. I had a student in the classroom, and Jefferson Lions Club came through for us. He was struggling, and he was on a computer, and he was just slow. He just can't get his work done. And I said to him, "What's going on?" And he said, "Well, I just can't see. I can't see anything." And this student was a high school kid. So we went and got a eye exam through one of our social workers, and he now has glasses. And guess what? His productivity has picked up. Imagine that, right? So we are so grateful for these agencies that help us out at no cost for our students. And just grateful for that. I just wanted to share that story because when you have those stories, it makes it more meaningful, right? And then our homeless shelters, these are, some folks, we do have some students who are homeless. And so we help them out through these, these agencies, as well as some other things that Rachel could talk more about, but I can't think of them top of my head. But there are things that we do besides these two to help with homelessness. I'm now going to turn time over to Ms. Duke, and she's going to talk a little bit how law enforcement and the justice system helps us out in wraparound services.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello. So we do have 120 homeless families right now in Jackson County as of this morning. So I wanted to share that with you guys. So we do work very closely with law enforcement, our magistrate court, juvenile justice, and the district attorney's office. And we like to work with law enforcement and the court system because it's really advocating for the children to stay in school, stay out of the hospital, and stay out of trouble. So we're kind of like being proactive with that. And, through this path, the families receive support and education to really keep that child out of crisis. So we try to get them involved when needed. And we do have a local interagency planning team that meets once a month at the DFACS office. And that's to improve and facilitate the coordination of services for children who are living with severe mental health needs. Because right now we are seeing a lot of it. And our teachers are asking for help. What do we do? We haven't seen this before. What is happening? And it's all across the board in all of our schools. And it's really scary. So we're trying to get a lot of these services in before it gets out of control, before that child ends up in, DJJ and even just the regular jail system. So we also have something called CHINS, or Children in Need of Services. And this is through our juvenile court system and Judge Hicks. So these are for students, and it can be any age. I think the youngest one that we've had so far has been 7 years old. And so it's school refusal, kids who are refusing to go to school, that have behavioral challenges in the classroom, and attendance problems. That's a big one because, if they're refusing to go to school, they're not coming to school, and parents are calling us and saying, "Can you please come out here and get my kid to school?" And we go out there, but there's only so much that we can do. We usually involve law enforcement at that point and, try to help. So speaking of attendance, we have an attendance review board, and it's really come a long way. I've been here for 16 years, and the last 4 years it's just been incredible because our referrals are drastically dropping because we're holding parents accountable, to get your kid to school. And if you can't come to school, let's figure out why. Let's wrap around that child and get some services in there. So if a child is 15 or under and they miss 10 or more unexcused days, that's when we refer them to the attendance review board, which is at the magistrate court, and it's in front of the magistrate judge. So a lot of times we do CHIN referrals through that. So the attendance review board and the CHINs kind of work together. Sometimes families, the parents do get warrants if they're like repeat offenders. And a lot of times it's just a warning, which really helps, because if they know that on the next unexcused absence, I'm going to have to go to jail, those kids are coming. So that's pretty cool. And so then we have MDT, which is our multidisciplinary team, and that's held at the DA's office once a month. So we have the assistant DAs, the Treehouse, which is the sexual assault place in Commerce. And we have law enforcement, the sexual assault nurse examiners in there. All 3 school districts are there. And we have a list, and we go through. And unfortunately, it's growing. It's getting bigger and bigger of kids who have been physically abused, sexually abused. And so we talk about that, and it's awful to sit there and hear that, but it really helps us communicate and know what's going on with that kid. You know, here, this kid's acting out. Well, they're going through a lot right now, and let's get them some help. So that's what our MDT is. And again, like sometimes it's 30 minutes, but lately it's been about 2 hours to go through all these cases that keep appearing on our list. So wraparound equals success when students and their caregivers commit to the process. And that's what it's about. If we can get the parents on board to commit and they start to see a change in their child, it's improving school attendance, grades, fewer discipline issues. They're less likely to engage in risky behavior, and they're living in the less restrictive environments. And we are seeing it work. So, do you have any questions?
Mr. Wax, I want to embarrass you.
Please, go ahead.
That last slide, whoever did that one, talks a lot about what wraparound's all about. That's what it is. I'm very proud to be a part of Jackson County, to see the success that y'all have had, the progress that you've made. I look at the 13 counties which I work. I can't work in our county because I'm sitting in this chair, but I still have access to things. But I just want to say publicly how much I appreciate Ms. Duke and your staff.
Thank you.
Mr. Waxer, you, because all of this has a huge impact on what we just talked about.
That's right.
People sometimes have a tendency to say, well, maybe it's that teacher's fault, or maybe it's the parent's fault. And really, folks, parents are doing the best they can do. They haven't figured out how to handle some of these things. Mm-hmm. And if you don't think this is important, look at the state budget and see where the money's going. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I told you, Miss Duke, you were going to do great. I told you were going to do great. Mr. Hooper with PR.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for letting me come back again. I'll say that monthly. So I want to start tonight by giving you guys an update on our House Bill 251 request that we did in the month of December. Our next slide will show you kind of a recap of what's happened right before Christmas break or winter break. We sent all West Side Middle School families a letter informing them of what's middle school they're zoned for. We, in that letter, explained to them the expedited House bill process that we were going to be holding from January 1st to the 31st. In total, we received 39 House bill requests. That was it. So Our next slide will kind of break down the projected enrollment for West and Legacy. You see West Middle School right now about 805, Legacy Knoll at 623, and at the very bottom you'll see the total transfer requests. We had 24 transfer requests come in for West Middle that were zoned for Legacy. A lot of those were 8th graders wanting to stay in their school, and then we had 15 that were zoned for West Middle that wanted to go to Legacy Knoll. So there's a good breakdown of the schools. And so obviously we'll help that relief at West Middle. So any questions about that? No? All right. So, and I want to thank Martha Wilson and Teresa Dearman for keeping up with this. Those requests came to my email, and I just clicked the forward button and was like, "Here's another one," and they kept up with all the data. So I had the easy job of just hitting the forward button. So thank you all for that. So give you an update real quick. I don't have a slide for this, but our school system websites are done through Blackboard right now. Blackboard was bought out by Finalsite. So we did some research with Finalsite and some other vendors for websites. And right now we're being offered a free transfer window to Finalsite. We've reached out to other school systems, the state PR officers. We all have a group that we can text in and an email, and website's kind of a hot button right now. And it seemed like everybody was with Finalsite. And after watching the demo of Finalsite with our media specialist team, I was told you better go sign that contract right now to go to Finalsite. Their big advantages to Finalsite is the back end use. Our websites are going to look very similar. We are going to add videos to them, so when you come to our homepage, you'll have some drone footage of different schools and students interacting, which are videos. But the back end access to our websites, if we want to post schools are closed notice, I can post it from the district website into all of our school websites at one time and not require 12 other people posting to their website. So it's going to make us a lot more efficient when it comes to posting on our websites. The goal is a July 1 launch. We have a kickoff meeting with them next week. The reason we want July 1 is because July is one of our heaviest months trafficked on our websites, and we don't want to switch after that or in the middle of that. So looking for July 1st for our new sites. So. In January, our school system was visited by Stan Tucker. If you guys don't know who that is, he's a literacy advocate, a kindness ambassador. He hosts his own children's show and a motivational speaker. Mr. Tucker is the author of his own book, and he reached out to our school system and said, I want to come and I want to hang out with you guys for 3 days. And he met with every grade level at every elementary school. He did 2 a day, did the same thing as all the grades rotated in. As you can tell, our students loved him. He is full of energy and motivation for our students. He ate lunch with our students. He read his book. He talked to them. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be requested to come back by our students because he was a lot of fun. So there's a couple different photos, a couple different slides there of him hanging out with our students. He went to North and South and East and West and Maysville and everybody and Gum, and everybody enjoyed him. So we want to say thank you to Mr. Tucker for reaching out to us and making that happen. You see him hanging out with the school buses too, so pretty cool. Another big event we had here in Jackson County was the Booking It for Backer. For those of you that don't know, Coach Heather Backer is the physical education teacher at Gum Springs Elementary School. She's recently been re-diagnosed with breast cancer. So Gum Springs community rallied around her. They said they wanted to do a blood drive in her name. The American Red Cross came into Gum Springs, took over the media center the afternoon of last Thursday. 25 people gave blood in her name. Friday, we had a district-wide pink out. If we've got I think a video here in a minute where you can see some pictures. We even got Dr. Brown to wear pink. So, and then Saturday morning, we had 60-degree weather in the middle of last week. Saturday morning, we had wind chills in the 20s, and so that was fun. We had over 400 people run a 5K, and it was at West Middle. They went around Gum, went in the West Middle parking lot, did a couple laps, and then came down the finish line. And we even had Brad Hayes hold up the big finish line because the wind was blowing at one time. So good job to Brad. But there's a short 45-second video to kind of show you the recap of that week and what we did for Coach Backer. the power of the community is strong when you support one of your own. And if you saw Dr. Brown in the video of him running as well, he was in there, so with the drone. But you had to look hard. So, and finally tonight, you gonna make a comment?
Yeah, I will.
I didn't say anything bad.
We ran the first mile and a half.
They made the turn.
There's
and,
significant elevation changes
Yeah.
on the West Middle and Gum Springs
They
property.
made the turn. I was standing there with the camera, and they said, "But we crushed that first mile." So, and finally tonight, we're in the midst of our pre-K registration campaign. We're the Georgia Lottery pre-K program, and so for the upcoming school year, we're informing our families. We've rolled it out through social media, through all of our schools twice. Dr. Waxter made sure we had a Spanish version that we were able to release today as well for our families. The lottery, those applications are February 1st through the 28th, and our lottery drawing will take place on the 14th. So we're in the middle of trying to get our future 4-year-olds in our building, and they can go to our website, jacksonschoolsga.org/pre-K, to get the forms and turn them into their schools. So, any questions?
I just want to say, anybody that's not listening to the podcast, I really encourage to. I feel like I'm listening to Casey Kasem sometimes. I mean, you got a really good, you got the perfect voice for radio.
Thank you. My dad says I have a perfect face for radio.
I wasn't going to say that, but
So I appreciate that.
it's good.
I appreciate it. We have a lot of fun. I think it's a
Yeah.
great way to highlight our student athletes and our students that are doing great things. And I think the students are embracing it, and the coaches are having fun with it. And I think it's just another way to highlight what we're doing in Jackson County. So awesome. Thank you all. See you all Monday.
Thank you, Mr. Hooper. Ms. Dodge.
Good evening, Board. We have a lot of good news on the financial front. As you know, I sent out an email communication to each of you regarding our fiscal year 21 financial audit and the results of it, and so I hope you all got that. And it was with no findings or issues or significant adjustments or misstatements, so that's always a great thing. And it's nothing on me, it's my entire team and all the people that are involved with the finances and the amazing job that they do, and the fact that I don't ever even have to question anything they're doing. They're amazing. Then we also just completed our SPLOST audit. Because we collect more than $5 million a year in SPLOST funds, we have to have a performance audit done every year on that activity. And we just received the draft of that audit today, and it is also without findings. And as soon as we get the final report, I will make sure that I email that out to you guys so that you have a copy of that also. And another big thing, we finally got approval from the Department of Education for our final CARES budget amendment, so we were able to draw down over $5 million in grant funds. It's not reflected in our January because we actually received it on February 2nd, but we have received those funds, and it will now reimburse the general fund that has been supporting that activity up until now. But we'll start with SPLOST, and it continues to grow and continues to look great. Of course, all the measurements, month over month, year over year, month over average, everything is an increase. So it's a great thing, and it's helping, and it's building that balance for us to get started on the next capital project. And then our financials for the general fund, we are right in line with our expenditures. We are at 58% of the year completed, and we have spent exactly 58% of our budgeted expenses. So we're right in line, and as you can see, we've done amazing on the collections, especially for property taxes. We're at 92% collections. Few counties even see 90% throughout the year. So the fact that we're halfway through the year, we've already gotten 92% collections. That says a lot for our tax commissioner's office and the job that they do. And then our fund balance looks great. It's a little lower than we were at this time, the same time last year. But again, that over $5 million grant funds is not reflected in this, and it will be next month. So it will continue to just support and help our fund balance look good. And if we continue on the same track, it looks like we'll end somewhere close to $30 million for the end of the year, which will be great, and it'll be a great help to help us support the construction of the new elementary school. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dodge. Mr. Schofield, with Facilities and Operations.
Thank you, Dr. Brown and board. It's great to be back this month to bring some updates on our operations department. Just to give you, been a lot of movement in the facilities world right now. We've just over the last few months, we've transitioned out of our mobile unit out here that on the Empower campus. That mobile classroom units will be moved later this month. Mr. Farmer set that up to get that transition out. It'll take a little payment off of us every month, so will help us in the long run, of course. The individuals in that, we had our social workers here. Some of the movement that's been going on, our teaching and learning staff here, a lot of our SPED departments moved into this building. Our school psychologist moved into C-Wing to a couple classrooms. Our social workers, and she didn't brag on it, have moved to the little yellow building down here, the hut. We think they're very happy, but we've had to do a lot of work there. Just some positive things going on. Our school nutrition moved in the old band room to that area, so we're very, very positive about a lot of that movement that's going on. Give kudos to the facilities department. They've done a great job of putting all those pieces together. It's been a very stressful January and early February for that team. But I do commend all of that staff. Our school nutrition updates, the 5-year review was completed the last week of January, I believe the week of January 30th. We had 3 schools involved in that review. That was Jackson County High School, Maysville, and East Jackson Elementary. Members of the Department of Ed were extremely complimentary of our schools. They were complimentary of the staff. Just the work and the things going on were all very positive. Talked about the entire program. Just many positive things coming out of that. So we're very proud of Ms. Thorpe and her staff, Meredith, Cindy, Diane, Ms. Steen, from the hub here, but the staff's all out in the school. And I just applaud the efforts of the teamwork of that staff, because we beg, borrowed, and steal to make that successful down the road, as we know we have to do. But do want to say the final report will be sent in to Dr. Brown toward the end of February, and we'll be glad to share that report with members of the board at that time. But it was extremely positive. At this time, I'd like Mr. Farmer to come up and provide a few project updates and give you an update from facilities. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Brown, board, Mr. Schofield. I always appreciate the opportunity to speak, and definitely enjoy bringing you some great updates from Legacy Knowles. So very excited to let you know the brick is continuing. We've had a great week of weather, at least up until today. From what I understand, we've got some rain coming in tomorrow, so that'll go back to slowing us down a little bit. But they've done a great job. The brick is coming around with the loading dock, the door in the kitchen. The EFS is actually, they're trying to catch up with the brick masons, so that's come quite a bit of a competition between the two, which is good. The spray foam installation, we've had some good, pretty days, so we're allowed to get the moisture we need in the block to be able to put the application on. The electrical and HVAC units, some of them have been delivered and actually installed. The mechanical, electrical, and plumbing connections are being finalized. They're in final stages before they're all connected up and making sure that everything's complete there. We are still continuing our low voltage wiring, which deals with your fire alarm, your door access and speaker systems. Your ceiling soffits continue. They are complete in the cafeteria. I actually looked at those this week, and they did a great job on the framing of that. A lot of metal studs went into that. So first primer coat on blocks is continuing in the stairwells and gymnasium, and also the initial paint color on the ones that were primed a couple weeks ago are being applied in some of the classrooms. So we are moving forward despite the challenges of our weather. I appreciate Carol Daniel and what they've done for us in making sure that work continues. Some of the things that are coming up, and I will tell you that we have glass on here. A lot of the glass windows have already been installed, and they continue to be installed. The kitchen cooler and freezer are on site and ready to be installed. The grading on the field, we were hoping that if we had another couple days of good weather, we could start that next week, but it looks like that's going to be delayed again due to rain. But anyway, as soon as it dries out, we will definitely get on the grading of that. I know they're as anxious about it as I am to get that done. The ceiling grid installation is moving along rapidly, and they're doing a great job on that. It continues through the first floor up into the third floor. And the epoxy floor coating will begin hopefully sometime this week. We do have some pictures that I would like to show if we could do that. This is the overview of the rear of Legacy Knoll. Some more brick has been added where the scaffolding is, but you can kind of see what it's going to look like. The main entrance, not having the rain, we were able to get in there and do just a little bit of grading to kind of knock down the roughness of it, but you can see the block. And a lot of that now has changed because we've got the waterproofing and some of the spray foam insulation on it. And then as you can see the windows, the cafeteria, the metal studs I was referring to, that's a picture of the actual framing. And I believe, got a couple more, okay. The kitchen equipment is arriving and being installed as we can see here, and the block walls take a lot of prep to make sure that they're smooth and before they're painted. And went over there the other day and got two guys rubbing stones, you know, getting some of the hard stuff and machines on it, so they're really taking their time and making sure it's right, and we appreciate that. This is an overview of the school, top and front view, so very excited about the way the progress is coming. I do want to say also, and I appreciate my team. I know Mr. Schofield had mentioned about some of the moves that we've done. Our team is very solid, and they do a wonderful job in executing tasks when they are given that. I really appreciate the fact that the Ms. Ledford Lyle and John Robinson have been working diligently on the furniture and making sure that that she gets everything that she needs for our students, for our teachers, and for the building. And I appreciate that collaboration. I appreciate Dr. Brown and Mr. Schofield supporting that time that was put into it. I was at the last meeting, and it was, you know, very intense, page by page, just to make sure that we covered everything. So I want to tell them I appreciate that time, and like I said, I got a great team, and they're the ones that make it happen. Any questions? All right. Dr. Brown, Board, Mr. Schofield, thank you.
During the January board meeting, we brought some information to the board on proposed start and end times for next year's school year. Following day after that board meeting, as you all know, Dr. Brown sent out a video message to staff members. Over the next few weeks, we met with teacher advisory groups, parent advisory groups, received a lot of emails. We've continued to get a lot of excellent feedback. You know, from our stakeholders. Some positive, some for, some against. That's just what we had expected. That's the reason we wanted to put it out there, is to get feedback and allow everyone to provide us that information. I commend the efforts of Dr. Brown and Mr. Hooper. They responded to 99.9% of the emails, if not all of them. I just didn't want to put 100% because somebody might be here that didn't get a response. But I know they responded to a tremendous number, and I think it was important on Dr. Brown's side to make sure he responded to those emails, and I commend him for that and that effort. This is not an easy decision. You know, we have to say, which, first and foremost, what is best for students and staff continues to be at the center of our conversation, and you know, we're thinking about the mitigations of the impacts of traffic and how we can mitigate that traffic in our school zones, and continued growth is just continues to create challenges as we plan for that. We must also consider what the future holds in certain areas of our county as well. With this being said, we will continue to listen to our administrative teams and make a decision in the near future in terms of where we'll move at our start and end times. But I wanted to bring updates to the board during this meeting as to where we were there. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Schofield. I'll just follow up with what he said. We really appreciate the feedback that's been given. It helps us improve as an organization. Considerations that we've been shared with us that we think about, the driving time for high school kids, the sleep pattern of high school kids, making sure we support all of our students at all levels, planning time at the elementary school and the extended day, extra time that was added on to the elementary school. Is that going to hurt our teachers in regard to planning? The efficiency and safety of our transportation department and our students. But decisions like this impact a significant amount of people. So it takes time. You got to consider various factors. So with that said, we're going to take our time reviewing the data and feedback and before we make any decisions, any final decisions to our current system. So thanks for your work on that, Mr. Schofield, and
very good.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, board. Any questions for me on any of those items? Thank you all.
And I take a point of personal privilege as well, just saying thank you to all the constituents that do reach out to us. Your voice is what we need to hear, and I've heard a lot of them, and I do appreciate it. That being said, we do have executive session on the agenda this evening, so if I can get a nomination to go into executive session.
So moved. Second.
All right. Sorry. All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. All right. So we will be back.